All right, people, we are back. wait a minute. Sanfilippo is in a car on the side of a road again. It must be Saturday. Jimmy, I had high hopes today. I did. I had high hopes. I am in Heartland, Wisconsin, getting ready for a track meet today with the kids are here and everything like that, and we're getting ready to go out. So I thought I'm just gonna do this from the hotel room because we came down early. I'm being nice, relaxed, got my space, whatever the case may be. That's not the case, Jimmy. Now everybody's not up yet. So I don't want to go waking people up. And then all of a sudden people are going to come in and out of the room and then I'm stuck. You're not going to believe what happened to me last night, Jimmy. I thought I had everything figured out. I'm going to go into the hotel room. We got all this stuff and I've got two 12-foot, 6-inch pole vaulting poles that I got to bring in. No problem. I'll take them up the stairs. I'm going to tell you about angles for a second, Jimmy. I couldn't get the poles around the corner on the stairs. So here I am sitting in a stairway of a hotel praying nobody walks up and says, what the heck is wrong with you? Why can't you get these poles up there? And then I'm thinking to myself, I'm not even going to get these. Now what am I going to do with them? Because I can't stay on the car because they're expensive. So what do I drive? Just drive all night, Jimmy? What do I do? Finally, I found a place that I could walk them up the side, and then I couldn't get them in the room, Jimmy. I couldn't get them in the room. They may just stay there. I'm going to tell Allie, you got to vault out of the hotel room today. That's the way that it is. Just remote in. They'll be fine. You'll be okay. Deal with it. Good Lord. So that's my morning.
Well, you know what the good news is, Joe? Somehow, first of all, I didn't think we'd be talking about angles and geometry this morning, but good for you for keeping it educational. Okay. But it's obvious, since you're smiling, you must have figured out a way to work it out.
Oh, for God's sake. You must have
figured out a way to work it out.
Listen, that's not even what it means. It wasn't even, that isn't, at least use it in the right context, Jimmy. We're never coming up again. But at the same time, I thought to myself, man alive, I'm stuck. This is what we're going to do. Finally, I got him in there. I'm like, well, I'm excited. Allie's excited to compete today. We got about 15 kids down here competing against all divisions in the state of Wisconsin. So it's going to be a good test for all of them. We're going to have a good time and it's fun. It's just fun to watch these kids compete. It's fun. You know, when you find people that have a strength and you could see them lean into their strength, regardless if it's kids in high school, if it's your teachers, if it's your principals, whatever the case may be, when you see somebody doing something that they love to do, and then they do it at a level that, you know, you can see them getting better and increasing. I don't know if there's too much better. I really don't. I love watching that. I think that all the way from watching kids do it when I was teaching to watching my principals do it when I was superintendent, to watching teachers do it when I was a principal, you know, all of those things just make me feel like, man, when we can lean into people's strengths and have a good time watching them grow, I don't know if there's really a better feeling from a leadership lens. I really don't. And that sounds probably hokey, but at the same time, I just feel like that's kind of, I think about that a lot, well, especially, you know, Teacher Appreciation Week is this week, but I think just the idea that when you can lean into the strength of others and make sure that they recognize that they have that strength and they can build on that strength, it's just a really fun thing to watch from almost from the sidelines.
Yeah. First of all, good morning, everyone. Look, we got Taylor Upchurch from Oklahoma City. Josh Tovar saying, hey, good job, Joe. Talking a little geometry. Maybe next week we can talk some curriculum.
No, God. Why would we do that here?
That's right. That probably would not be a good idea. Frank Cullen, waking up this morning with sunshine out of Ohio. You guys are amazing. I love also the fact that as soon as Joe starts talking, you guys start typing. There's always something to say about Joe. That's the best part about the show. What is Joe going to say that we can all comment on? So right. That's pretty good. Joe, look at me really closely. I'm thinking about, I might have to do we could turn this into a commercial. We could get a sponsor.
Yeah.
We need to get a sponsor. So is there anybody out there right now that has a solution when you haven't slept and you wake up and your eyes look like this?
Everybody's got that solution, Jimmy. It's called sleep more. and neither of us do it. It's just what it is. I mean, I'm like, I know I won't get home tonight till 1.
I woke up this morning, I felt like Puff the Magic Dragon.
Yeah.
I got some compressants on my eyeballs. Go down.
That's good. That's good. Somebody's gonna screenshot that. That's gonna be fantastic. That's what people are gonna like that one. So
trust me, I am not vain at all when it comes to my looks. I am old. I'm old. I'm actually in Vegas.
I know. You're in Vegas.
I mean, look at me. I'm in a hotel room, Joe. I was thinking about going out on the streets, but then I thought, it might be rated R sometimes. So I better stay away from that.
No.
You know, if I have one more guy flicker one of those cards at me when I walk by.
Right. I know. My kids couldn't get off the strip fast enough. We were there a couple years ago. They're like, yeah, we're next. Let's get to the hotel. They're like, yeah, this is not for me. Not for me at all. But I was like, yes, look at all these people. We're people watching. They're not people watching. Let's get out of here. That was our take.
Well, the good news is, Joe, I don't drink, so it's not like I'm hungover. Nope, I just haven't slept. I'll fix that. I'll fix that on Monday when I go home.
Yeah, good. I love it. Yeah, get some sleep. So, like I said, the way that we can, maybe your strength is being able to be able to perform without sleeping at all. Maybe that's your strength. But we can identify them. I was having this conversation with the group this week because, with Teacher Appreciation coming up and any appreciation week, month, day, whatever the case may be, I always get really nervous when we talk about all the stuff that we're going to do for people, because if it doesn't come off as authentic, it just ends up being one more thing. You and I have talked about this a lot. At the beginning of the year, when we go to do convocations and people come up and they start thanking everybody in the world for all the work that's been done to get the school ready, both of us have had conversations with leaders in school districts to just say, hey, please make sure this is not the only time that you talk to these groups before the appreciation week that's designated by the country comes up. Otherwise, everything that you've built over the course of the last hour here, moving them and making them feel good and valued, is now all lost, because then it becomes an obligation. And so the reason that I started thinking about strengths is one of the things that's cool about the appreciation and authentically helping people out is making sure that we're great talent scouts for the people that we lead. And the reason that I think about it is because, I've been in situations a lot where, an appreciation week is coming up, or I know that something's coming up that I want to make sure that I go and appreciate people in a certain area. And then I realize, man, I haven't been there in a while. Like, I haven't been in that space. I don't feel like I'm connected to that group. So the second that I walk in and say, man, you guys are really good at what you do, the immediate thought is, you have no idea what we do. You just came down here because you were obligated to give us a donut. Like, that ends up being a big problem. And so what we were talking about was, how can we, if we're not in those spaces, find our way into those spaces so we don't feel like it's not authentic, but at the same time, we know we haven't been there, so you can't make up for the weeks and months or whatever that you haven't been there. But is there a way to kind of close the gap? And one of the things that I talked to them about was, look, if you weren't there to see great things happening in that space, that doesn't mean that nobody was there to see great things in that space. So when you start asking questions to colleagues about what's great about the kindergarten group, or what do you see that's working really well with the custodian group, and I ask you as a teacher, Jimmy, if I walk into your classroom and say, hey, what are you thinking about what the custodians have been doing? I mean, it's been just crazy how much work they've had. What do you think? And then you tell me something great about them. Now I can go to them and say, I was just talking to Jimmy, and Jimmy told me about this, this, and this, and I just wanted to say thank you for that. And it was just cool that he was talking about you. That now I'm building you up, I'm building them up, and I'm closing the gap in a spot that I haven't been in, so it doesn't feel weird when I walk into that spot. Because otherwise, if it feels weird when I walk in, I may choose just not to go. Now, I know myself well enough to know that I may just say, you know what, it's not going to feel authentic. It's better to just not do it than to walk in and hurt feelings because it's not authentic. So if you can close the gap on that by making sure that they know that other people are talking about them, now we lean into that. Now that also means that you can go back to them at some point and talk more about what the other person was talking about, because now you have the in that moment, right? So you can build some of your own momentum in a place that you may have lost it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I was looking at Jamie's comment here, which is a pretty well said comment, Jamie. Well said. And that's kind of how we feel a lot about things, right? Whether it's about, I think it's about, first of all, there's something you just said in there, like you can go back to them, and I do think that, when we talk about school culture, sometimes I think we make it way too complicated. And right, what are the things that truly bring meaning to other people, or what is meaningful to others? And one of the things we know is when we invest time in people. So
Right.
that's always meaningful to people, right? To intentionally circle back, to intentionally follow up on something. It's amazing to me how not closing that loop can sometimes hurt us culturally, right? Create a morale issue for us. And I think we convince ourselves, and again, we've talked about this before, I think it's, just the pacing of our job. We have to move so quickly. And that sometimes we have to be really intentional in slowing down. And I hope that this time of the year, I feel, at least what I'm seeing on social media, the experiences I see when I'm in the school, I was in one yesterday. There are a lot of events going on because it's May, right? We're closing down the school year in many ways. There's a lot of events going on to celebrate people, to celebrate accomplishments, to recognize people. And so, again, it's very fast paced right now, but we still want to make sure we're being very intentional and slowing down. But it looks like to me, one of the things I do appreciate about this part of the year is that I do think that people are starting to, as they observe things that are happening in their building, that they're actually slowing down to take time to celebrate one another. And that's also very important, obviously. But I think part of what you're saying is what we're hearing others say is, why do we do that? Why do we pack so much in the month of May to do that?
Yeah.
We've got to figure out other ways to celebrate people throughout the year. And again, I think all it really is, it doesn't have to be super fancy or super creative at all. I think it just has to be done regularly.
Yes.
Right. So in other words, whether you do it every month at a faculty meeting, I was talking to a guy yesterday, a principal. It was really cool just hearing some of the things he says. We literally recognize our people. So one of their school improvement goals this year was to be intentional and try to create, which I loved, right, meaningful experiences in terms of building relationships with all people in their organizations, and not to forget parents.
Yeah.
And so they had actually brought their staff together. I love this. They brought their staff together, and he said, Jimmy, and I'm just saying this, please forgive me, but he said, hey, we're trying to figure out ways to be intentional about creating experiences that people carry our banner, right? We love that. And so I have a smaller staff, about 50 people, but we came together and we generated over 100 different ways. And what I loved about that is he didn't say, hey, I did that. He didn't sit in an office during the summer with his admin team and try to create these things. So, hey, how can we recognize teachers? And no, he didn't put a committee together to do that. And again, all those things are okay. But if you really want to, because what he couldn't see is that not only did he create all these opportunities for people to come together to figure out ways to build meaningful relationships with people, in doing so, he was building meaningful relationships with people.
Right.
He was using his people to generate ideas. And it reminds me of the idea of collective efficacy that, hey, bring a group of people together, bring your staff together, because if the people on your staff, the people in the room who are committed, talented, dedicated, intelligent, and quite frankly, have degrees, if we as an organization can't figure some of these things out, well, when are we ever going to figure these things out? We can't wait for people to come figure these things out for us. And so what I loved about all that was just the fact that he was talking about the ways they do it. And so, and I can't remember the exact activity he was talking about, but it sounded really cool. But they were doing something that they actually, this month, I think it was just last week, they actually, all the staff had to go around the building and they were searching for something, but it would have become something that they had recognized people with and that people were really invested in. And they had all different types of things set up throughout the building so people could take, like, find little clues. It wasn't like a scavenger hunt, but they could find clues. But then there was meals and there was music and there was games, and they would have to do things. Maybe it was competitive over here. Maybe they had to tell something over here. Maybe they had to do a karaoke song over here. But it was really, you could tell they put a lot of thought into it. But he says, Jimmy, the thing what I love about it is we just didn't do that because it's May. We actually do that every month, and people actually really look forward to it. Right. So I just love the idea of people doing that, but being very intentional, but even if it's quarterly, but I think we have to figure out ways to beat these once a year type things is what I would say.
Okay, so in saying that, I want to push that a little bit because I think it's important, but I want to ask you the question. Is it important? Is it more important to do that activity where you get everybody together and talk about how we can appreciate each other, or is it more important to follow up on the ideas that were brought up?
I think it's both, but I think it's about,
So I want you to think about it for a sec, because here's the reason that I asked the question. Because I think there are a lot of leaders that do step A to that. I really do. They bring them up. What do we think? Maybe even if it's like a survey or something like that. How do you want to be appreciated? How can we show you that you have value? Whatever the case may be. And then it turns into the one time the leader did the one thing. There's two, for me, there's 3 steps to it, not just 2. There's the initial conversation about what it should look like and how you want to be appreciated and what we can do to make sure that we value your strength and build on your strength. That's step A, where you get everybody together and have the real conversation where everybody's involved with it. Step B is making sure that you follow up on some of the things that were talked about to make sure that you're actually doing those things. All right. Step C, which I think people miss out, is making sure that we talk about the fact that we followed up on the things that we said that we were going to do at the beginning of the year or whenever we did it. Because even though we follow up and talk about, this is how we're going to do it based on what you said, not everybody gets a chance to see that. So when we can say, here are some of the things that we're all doing collectively in step C, it closes the circle for everybody. Not just for the people in the middle that may see some of the things that we do more often, but it closes the gap for everybody. And I think that's kind of where we miss out, is like, well, they didn't do that for me. I don't understand. Like, we had talked about it the one time. And then when that becomes the conversation, like, well, they didn't do it for me, or nothing happened. I didn't see him in this area or that area. Or that's not what it looked like here, or whatever the case may be. Then it's harder to bring back to the full group, because you've got those people that are saying, I don't even want to be here. I don't want to walk around the building. I don't want to do that. And that speaks to how are we creating, like you said, collective efficacy for what it looks like. So I think your answer is actually right. It's both, but I want you to delineate between the two. Like, what do you think in terms of the importance of how, of those, I said 3 steps, but in terms of 2 steps that I asked you, what do you think?
Yeah, and when you said it, I was trying to think. I thought I understood what you were saying, so you actually just clarified it for me. But actually, all of those steps are important, right?
Yeah.
Because if you leave one of the steps out, you're not going to have the same type of experience. But you can make the same relationship, Joe, I would say, to almost everything. So in other words, there's a lot of takeaways from that. So one for me is here's how I say it. It is so important for leadership to implement a process that is so effective that people have such a good experience that they want to replicate it.
Yes.
In other words, we're not just doing these things only for the sole purpose to celebrate people or to be creative or whatever. But what's powerful about it is all these types of things, when you bring people together, the idea really is to bring people together. It's to give people a voice. Correct. But I want our leaders to remember is that everything that leaders do is also to teach, to model. We can't ask our teachers to do things in the classrooms that we ourselves, especially when we come together every month, we've got to come together every month and run that like it was a classroom.
Right.
And so we're trying to model for teachers. Imagine if they have such a good experience, then maybe they will replicate those things in the classrooms, bringing all kids together. Yep. Giving all kids a voice,
yes.
Following through on the things you said you were going to do.
Yes.
All those things are super important, because if you think about attributes of effective leaders, think about all that comes out of that. Well, there's good modeling.
Yep.
We are giving people a voice. We are building capacity. We see everybody as a leader. And dependability, follow through, right? All these things that are really important. And that's what I love about the idea. And I think one of the things I always think about leaders is they're just always trying to do so much by themselves. And I get it. I'm a servant leader. I care. I feel responsible. But if one of the major characteristics of great leaders or effective leaders is they build capacity, right? They can't do these things by themselves. Here's where I thought you were going to go with the conversation, Joe. And you kind of said it there at the end, but it made me think of a situation yesterday, right? So I'm in a building yesterday, and we are there to work on onboarding with, I'm just going to say onboarding with instructional coaches. Okay. But what I realized when I was there, and I was kind of disappointed in myself, to be honest, because I know better. I just know better, right? But I made an assumption, and the assumption I made is that they would have all instructional coaches there and all the team leaders there. But guess what?
Nope. Yeah.
And I was so mad at myself, because what the leader didn't realize is you just created a division.
Right.
It certainly created some undercurrents, because these people are going to be viewed as the favorites. And I don't know why. I just assumed they would do that since we talked about it. Because when we said, hey, we're going to have our leaders there, we're going to onboard all.
Not everybody.
And so now, I needed to have a candid conversation with the individual. But I had to do it with the group too, in a really positive way at the end. Like, hey, what are our takeaways from today? And luckily, because it just made it easier for me. I was going to do it anyway, but I was trying in my head how to introduce it without creating a judgment or looking judgmental on it. Because I wasn't mad about it. I was just sad for the people that weren't there. Right. And I was also worried about not only the individual who didn't invite everybody, but I'm also worried about the individuals that were invited. And we see this all the time. So be careful, our audience today, that favoritism undercurrent, when we go and invite people and don't invite other people for whatever reason, it's going to create an undercurrent, because people are going to talk about that in some usually probably negative way. But anyway, so somebody brought that up and said, I wish everyone would have been here today to hear this, be a part of this. I said, well, tell me more about that. Right. And luckily the leader, I looked at the individual, and I could see him. And then the first thing they said, like, oops, that is, thank you. Yep. We are going to have to figure out how to circle back on this. He didn't use the word, so follow up, she said, and make sure we make this right. And it's going to have to start with me, because I'm going to have to go have some conversations with individuals. I messed this one up. Right. And I thought, you know what? That's the leadership lesson, right?
Absolutely. It's not
like they woke up trying to mess this up today. Yeah. But that's the grace we either have to give teachers, because there are teachers who have lost their way. They're not performing where they want to be. They don't want to participate. All these things are going on in buildings, and that's the real culture. That's the real culture. And so we have to figure out, but I still think it starts with people, investing in people, being very intentional and circling back, building relationships, attending things, going out of our way, remembering things that are important to them. So it reminds us that we were listening. I mean, we can go on and on forever about these things, but that was a good takeaway and a good lesson for me too, because I should know better. Yeah. But again, even I didn't. Right? I was so disappointed in myself.
Well, the interesting thing for me is you're sad for the people that weren't at the event with you all day. I was sad for the people that had to spend the whole day with you. So everybody takes on these situations just a little bit differently. You got whatever perspective is that you have. I mean, those people got a great nap. Here's the thing that we have to understand.
I just want you to know, Joe, I did not show up like this yesterday. I was not Puff the Magic Dragon yesterday.
Yeah, I'll tell you, everybody in that session was after they were done with you. I'll tell you that right now. So here's the thing, that as we kind of close this thing out today, the one thing that we want to tell people, where we keep coming back to like leaning into strengths, but I think we started talking about leaning into strengths. We ended talking about the importance of follow-up and making sure that we could close circles on things that everybody doesn't get a chance to see. So our challenge to you this week is think about things that you've already done, regardless if it's building strengths, if it's initiatives, whatever. And honestly, take a look at, have you closed the gaps with all of the groups? Have you closed the circle with all of the groups that are invested in that particular initiative, in that particular process, so we don't have things hanging out? Because like you said, Jimmy, that's going to create the undercurrent that you're going to have to deal with at some point. So why not deal with it now? And like you said, and like the leader said, it starts with me in terms of how I'm going to fix this. When you're vulnerable enough to stand up and say that out loud and then fix it, you've created so much momentum for the group, but you've also created momentum for you. And not a lot of people are creating momentum for us as leaders in these spaces. So we're going to lock it up. Go ahead. If you want to take us out, go right ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Joe, I mean, that honesty and that ability to do that is a reminder again that itself is a great leadership attribute. Correct. Right? And I think she will be able to recover it. She not only recovered it in the room with those individuals, she'll recover it. I know she will by doing that, right? That circle back. So just remember, whether we're working with a student, especially like in a student discipline issue, how important it is to be intentional to follow back up later in the day with that student to check in on them to see how they're doing, right? Oftentimes we have to give consequences, where that consequences is maybe calling a parent, or maybe it's a detention, or sometimes it's even an in-school suspension or a suspension. But we have to be really intentional in following back up to check on students so they understand, hey, it's okay. We're not mad at you. We love you. We're gonna make mistakes, but hey, I just want to check in with you, see how you're doing. When we meet with parents, whatever reason we meet with parents, in my opinion, there's no greater way to say to a parent that we're partners, like all of our mission statements say, that we care about you, is that we should always take time to make a note and follow up later in the day or the next day or within the first couple of days and say, hey, I'm just following up from our conversation on Monday. I want to circle back and check back in. How are things going? Did things work out? I'm just really grateful that you stopped by the school today. Thank you so much for the way you handled that situation. When we were in the meeting, you said something that I just resonated with me, and I just wanted to call to tell you how much I appreciated that. When we have a conversation with a teacher, are we following back up? Follow up, follow up, follow up. It is a great culture builder, a simple culture builder, a few minutes of circling back to say I care without even having to really say it, because the fact that you did it says it will pay a huge dividends in the future when it comes to building culture. So
nailed it, man.
So much. And I'm going to follow back up today to make sure those people have woken up since yesterday. And if not, we're going to see if we can worky it out with them a little bit. Okay. Worky is my new word. I'm going to get a shirt that says the worky man.
No, you won't. No, you won't. No, you won't. No, you won't. Because then I got to get 5 more.
Wait till I show up, Joe Sanfilippo.
You don't have the resources. You don't have the resources. You don't have the resources for it. Nobody's taking care. You have to. That's the way that you build capacity, is just making other people do your stuff for you. So here's the thing: we got to put ourselves in. Go Iowa! Yeah, I got you.
David Clark, 21 points. Indiana Fever last night. We lost, but it's okay.
That's all right. That's right, because it's not about winning. No, you're fine. All right, you guys, everybody have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful week. We will talk to you next week. Thanks so much for joining us. Take care, everybody.
God bless everybody.